guest today.
Yes, Christian Calabro is a longtime friend, in many ways like a son to me. And again, I don't use that word loosely at all. I really mean it. I mean, I've watched him grow. He's watched me grow. We've grown together, and he's continuing to flourish. So Christian Calabro is the owner. He is the founder of Innovative Financial Concepts down in Fort Lauderdale. He is a longtime veteran in the financial advisory world, specializing in a lot of tax concepts and also pretty intricate and very, very detailed insurance design. But our focus today really is Christian entering this world as a teenager. There are grown, experienced men and women, professionals who come in with a huge network, with a lot of education, degrees, and beautiful suits and dresses, etc. And it's an industry that has an 87% failure rate.
Mm.
Today, what we're going to talk about with Christian is here he is, several years into this business. How to, not so much the skill set, but mentally, psychologically, how were you able to come into this industry? Again, a high failure rate, right? Nearly 90% in year one will fail out. And those who survive, about half will fail out in year two. Christian has built a business that's in the millions using certain concepts. But again, not instead of talking about the concepts which he discussed in the Rainstorm podcast, we're going to talk about his mindset and where his breakthroughs came. So, Christian, on the personal side, I know you very well. So I'll frame the conversation. You had some very serious physical setback coming into this industry. I rarely heard about it, but the few times that you brought it up, I'm like, how is this man literally standing up? So, Neil, listen to this. He comes in, he's a young teenager in the financial services world in New York, full of financial uh, advisors, financial experts. A teenager, he calls himself a street guy. And again, he had this physical setback. Walk us through that very beginning and what that was like for you entering in this industry.
Oh, yeah, thanks for the kind words as always. Coming into the business, just like well, maybe not like majority of people, but coming in, I didn't really know what the heck I was doing. I just came in with the opportunity to make money. And, for me, I was always told that I couldn't do something, right? Even in high school, I was told by family members I was just going to drop out and be a loser, right? So for me, I always came in with the philosophy of, hey, listen, if there's an opportunity, I'm going to go out and make the most out of it, and I'm never going to quit. Um, Resiliency is definitely one of the top qualities that I probably have. I don't really take no for an answer. I just look at it as no right now, not no in the future. And obviously, to an extent, right, as it relates to business. And for me coming in, listen, I was just trying to figure it all out. I was trying to figure it all out. I was speaking to anyone who was willing to listen to me. And but before I came into business, about my physical limitations, I got into a bad car accident my senior year of high school. I was in the back seat, and at first I didn't really feel much pain, but I was in a very precarious situation, living situation. I didn't have a bed, so I was sleeping on a love seat for about 6 months, right before I joined the business and going into the business. And I woke up one day, October of 2011, and my back was just killing me. And as an 18-year-old, freshly 18-year-old kid, that's not a normal thing, right? And I experienced discomfort since the accident, but that set me on this uh, tremendous path of trying to figure out what the heck is going on. And
Just
simultaneously, while doing
elaborate
that,
on
doing
that.
the business.
You told me the number. Share with Neil and our audience. About how many physicians did you see over the course of the years and before you found out what you're really dealing with?
I must have between the ages of 18 and 23, I've probably seen north of 50 physicians.
Wow.
And I mean, you name it, I did it. You couldn't tell me that I didn't turn over every stone, right? I seen orthopedic doctors, chiropractors, physical therapists, surgeons, neurosurgeons, back surgeons, different types of orthopedic doctors in general. I mean, I've done injections, trigger point injections, epidurals, pain medications. I've got misdiagnosed more times than I could tell you. And imagine that from 18 to 23 years old, living on your own, trying to make it in this business, as Michael said, with an 87% failure rate in the first couple of years, let alone in New York City, where you throw a rock out on Park Ave, you're going to hit one of us in the head, right? So it was extremely challenging to deal with all of that at a very young age. But the health side of things was way worse than the financial aspect. There was days that I would have to lay down on the floor by 12 p.m. because my back felt like back then my spine felt like someone was wringing it.
Hmm.
That's the type of pain that I was having. And me trying to navigate through that was extremely disheartening because of being bounced around from doctor to doctor and people grasping for straws, not even knowing what the heck was going on. To then find out 5 years later, the doctor basically said that I was in care for she was I was under her care for probably a few years, and they did an amazing job. They did whatever they could, but they literally said, "Hey, listen, we've exhausted all our options. At this point, you just got to go to the Mayo Clinic and see, right? Because if they can't figure it out, I don't know." And went to the Mayo Clinic, and within a couple of days and another 7 or 8 doctors, they basically diagnosed me with fibromyalgia, which is a very misdiagnosed disease. There's a lot of people that have symptoms for it, and it could develop from other areas, such as even a lack of sleep could develop some fibromyalgia symptoms. So I don't say that lightly. It is very real. But by that point, I already kind of figured out my routine and rhythm on how to manage my body. And there's no one size fits all for anybody, but I found that. And they sent me to um, this seminar, if you may, where you learn more about fibromyalgia with other people who also have it.
Mm.
And when I tell you that was something that opened up my eyes and probably changed everything for me, I'm not exaggerating because I walked into this room and you would have thought, and ironically enough, it was in Florida, but you would have thought it was God's waiting room. I mean, these people there were extremely debilitated. They looked terrible, and I feel terrible even saying that, but it is what it
And there
is.
you are in your early 20s.
And I'm
Yeah.
there in my early 20s, and this is something that not many men get diagnosed with. It's very common in women and
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
common in elder women. So someone that was a teenage boy at the time getting diagnosed with this was very rare, right? And I was an athlete in high school, so I was very fit. And the first thing I had to deal with was the mental issues, not even the physical issues, but the mental issues, knowing that I'm limited with what I could do now compared to what I could do. I was always comparing myself to what I was doing in the past. And that was a huge battle. But then the mental aspect of seeing how people have already given up was something that was very depressing, to be honest. Because I
Hmm.
looked at it, I'm like, holy crap. And again, I don't give up. I refuse to give up. My thing was always, I'll find a solution. I'll find a way. No matter what, I'm going to find a way. And going in there and everyone's talking and I'm sitting there, I'm like, wow, I'm in a lot of pain. But seeing being around these people, I feel like I'm like the Mr. Olympia, right? I feel like I'm in the best shape of my life, right? And everyone's asking me, what are you doing in order to? I'm like, listen, I'm in pain as well, but I just move. I move my body. I don't give myself an excuse. I don't sit there and throw in the towel. And as a key with most autoimmune diseases, movement is key.
It is
Being
so.
able to move your body is extremely
Yeah.
important. And that's what kind of got me past that. But it's always been it's been a consistent thing, but I found that rhythm of, hey, this is how you take care of your body. And then the absolute biggest blessing, I'll end on this, was that because of what happened early on in my teenage years and early 20s, it set me up to having a more healthy lifestyle moving forward because I started focusing on eating better. I started focusing on stretching and yoga and meditation and all these different ways to biohack your body to make sure that you have that longevity
Hmm.
because health is wealth. And I don't care what anyone says, there's no amount of money that you could give someone to allow them to be sick. They would give up any amount of money to make themselves healthy again. And it came to
This
a
is,
head
yeah.
with Michael one day. I think it was a couple of years in to the business where I was really, really struggling bad. My medical health was really bad. My financial health was really bad. And I broke down in tears, right, on the phone with Michael. And I have no problems sharing that. I was ready to give up. I felt like I've already exhausted all these options. And the one thing that Michael told me, and I still remember to this day, is, bro, you got to keep going. You just got to keep going. And I know he follows it with his own life as well. So Michael, I'll thank you publicly again for those comments because it meant more than what I could express.
It
Wow.
was uh, it was who you were. You just needed to hear something that you already believed in. I brought up this topic because remember how naturally painful and challenging it is on its own. But then consider the stress of his career on top of that, and specifically the beginning of his career. Christian, take us through the darker times in the beginning. What is it like to go through and not get paid for a while and to get doors slammed in your face? Walk us through the mindset there. And again, at what point? So let's transition the conversation from there to until this happened. Then
Mm.
things started turning around.
It's a great question. In the beginning, as I mentioned before, I started off hot, right? I came in, I was doing well. I made $12,000 in my first 2 months, which again, in 2011 at 18 years old, that was great money, right? It was more money than I've ever seen in my life. It's more money than my parents were ever seen in their lives, right? To getting paid. My mom worked three jobs just to put food on the table, right? So barely making ends meet. So for me, that was life changing. But then I went 2, 3 months without making anything. And here I am, moved out on my own, thinking that everything was going to be consistent and I was just going to continue to crush it. And it was my first welcome to the business moment. Um, and for me, it was always the, hey, listen, everyone kept telling me, including Michael, there's just one big case away, man. One big case from wiping all this out and being positive, right? Going from the red to the black very, very quickly. And then I hit a couple big cases, and again, I just found this roller coaster ride. And that roller coaster probably lasted the better part of 8 to 10 years. um, Getting my teeth kicked in, getting no's all the time, having $1 million deals on the table, then getting pulled the rug out from underneath us and not being able to close those deals, right? And getting so high and so low in this business, they created such amazing times, but they also created such debilitating mental times for me. But for me, I always knew in my head that you just keep on going and things are going to work out. But where things really changed is when I started focusing more on my personal development and not the business.
Mm.
That is where my life absolutely changed.
And I think it's the mind is such a powerful thing. You talk about fibromyalgia. My fiance suffers through fibromyalgia as well, and it's very, very debilitating. And I know and understand your pain and how you're able to do it and how you can work as many hours as you work. But once we can trigger our mind, Dr. Joe Dispenza talked about this a
Mm,
lot, specifically that we can heal ourselves through our brain, through our mind in so many ways, our beliefs, our system, how we feel each day, how we show up every day has a lot to do with how much pain we can deal with, how much we can challenge, and how we can evolve from that. So, what kind of personal development have you gone through, especially with the fibromyalgia and the challenges of your business to grow to where you are today?
Yeah, I've always said that I've even growing up throughout my teenage years, I always loved psychology. I was always so interested in how people made decisions and why people react the way they react. And I was much more ahead of my years when I was growing up. But when I really just started to dive into it was actually during the pandemic, which a lot of people did, right? Because at the time, while it took a really big toll on a lot of people's mental health, right? During the pandemic. But I looked at it as one of the biggest blessings that could happen to me personally, as a personal development standpoint, because it gave me the time to slow things down. I was always constantly in a rush. All right, in this dimension of demand, as they like to call it, I'm always constantly needing to do things because I needed to be done. But the pandemic slowed everything down, and this was just by God's intervention, quite frankly, because I was off of social media for probably 4+ years before then. And I said, you know what? I'm bored, like everyone else. Let me just go on Facebook, right? And what do I see? A ad for Mr. Tony Robbins for his free seminar that he's hosting. In a couple of, I think it was a few weeks after that. And he was saying all the things that I'm like, yeah, yeah. I'm like, that's me. I'm like, that's where I want to be. I need to uncover that. I want to change my life, right? And that was the turning point of everything. Everything. I attended that session. I was soaked it all up. Went and bought his next seminar. Went to the next seminar. He did another sale
Walked
for
on
like
coals.
his whole university mastery bundle thing, right? And I was starting to do better just based from the work that I did with him during the prior couple of seminars. This is all within like a couple of months of each other. So I was already doing well, but I was not doing well enough to afford a 15, $20,000 bundle. I had to break it down on three different credit cards and max them all out and to commit to this. And at the time, I remember doing it, and I remember after that I threw up. I went to the bathroom and I immediately threw up because I'm like, what the heck did I just do? I just destroyed my financial life, right?
Wow.
And it was the best decision I could have made. Best decision I could have made because it completely shifted my whole mindset. I then went on to do like 12 of his different workshops in a matter of a year and a half, 2 years. And I completely rewired my brain, as Neil mentioned earlier, Joe Dispenza, and everything else changed. Everything.
Self-hypnosis was my big thing through my divorce is self-hypnosis, listening to lots of the law of attraction and looking at my faith and saying all these things that I know I cannot be conquered in anything if I put my mind to it. Yes, I'm going to have battles. I'm going to have struggles. I'm going to go through horrible things. However, I'm going to go through a lot of great things too. And just have that belief system that it's going to all work out. Everything always works out for me. That's my saying. I say all the time,
Yep.
everything's going to work out. Everything will. It might not look good right now, but everything's going to work out. And it always had in my life. And Michael, I think, that's the power of having these $1 million minutes discussions is to look at somebody and what made that person. We've interviewed a lot of celebrity athletes so far, Michael, and other professionals. And one thing that they all have is that willingness not to give up.
Yeah. So I will say this about Christian because I've had, I would say, the privilege of watching him grow. In his early years, I think he acknowledged, especially after listening to Tony and going through his programs, he had limiting beliefs. Young
Mm,
Christian had limiting beliefs. I remember like hey, what about LinkedIn? Oh, Mike, how could I put LinkedIn? I remember you had a real issue going on LinkedIn because you didn't feel like you had something impressive enough to put up there.
mm.
And here we are, fast forward. I see you heavily involved in your community and posting about it and making a difference, you know, and you to me, that was the very tangible evidence that you pushed back through those limiting beliefs. And obviously, you also smashed, your biggest dreams. So again, without going into how did you do it, you know, we find a young man here who is in his early 30s who knows how to build more than $1 million, financial advisory business through the changes he made in his mindset, his psychology, and even with those physical challenges. Again, I brought that up because the stress wasn't helping the physical challenge when he was younger, right? But I've never once heard him complain, ever. His complaints was about the doctors who are like, I feel like I'm wasting time there. But he never once said, yeah, I'm not feeling good today. I'm going to stay home and do nothing. Never once. He went to work. He showed up every time and he put his heart into his work. So, in the final few moments of this podcast, Christian, tell us what life is like. Once I know that you're always going and you're always looking to improve, but share with us what you've been able to enjoy because of your breakthroughs. Are like what kind of hobbies, what kind of things have you done because you were able to?
It's a dream. I'm honestly living my dream. I couldn't have met the person who you met 14, 15 years ago could not have told you that what I'm doing right now is even attainable. And I had big, hairy, audacious goals, right? But I did not know that I would be capable of this. I've been able, all the things that I've written down on my vision board, all the goals that I've set out, I'm happy and also kind of nervous to say that I've accomplished most of them. I've accomplished almost all of them. I just recently retired my mom. That was a huge goal of mine.
That's beautiful.
I've been
Congratulations.
traveling the world, experiencing different cultures. I have homes in different area codes, which is absolutely incredible, right? And being able to enjoy the fruits of all the hard work, all the tears, the blood and the sweat that I put into this. I built this person, as Tony Robbins will always say, Tony Robbins, he built him. I built this person. I'm extremely happy and proud of this person, but I always know there's room for improvement, and I'm always wanting to do that. And for anyone listening, I was dealt a very shitty hand. Excuse my language. But you got to play the hand you're dealt, no matter what, whether you
Can I
grew up with a
just
silver spoon or
I
not.
gotta bring something up. It stood out to me because it was kind of I know what that felt like. Tell us how you would start your day off and when you were in school. It wasn't like, yeah, I had you had a very difficult life as a child, so to speak. You were given a very small amount of money to go through your day
Oh,
with and food and eat. This is something that really stood out to me because he knows how to survive. Christian has always not just been a survivor, but he's learning from it. But go ahead, share with us a little bit about your humble beginning.
oh, yeah. So humble beginnings, growing up in New York City between Brooklyn and Staten Island. When my parents got divorced, my mom had to work three jobs just to keep the lights on. I said before, keep food on the table. That was a little exaggerated. There wasn't really much food, and I love my mom. She did everything she possibly could, but most days, in my early preteens and all the way through my teens, it was me looking for change on the floor, to go to the deli. And if I was able to scrounge up, 50, 75 cents, I was able to get a plain bagel and a quarter bag of chips and a quarter water, right? Back in the day, right? Um, and then if I had a dollar, I was able to eat really good because they were able to give me a little bit. They spotted me and they gave me a Reese's, right? And I was eating good, right? Reese's, a plain bagel, a bag of chips, and a quarter water was my
That
meal
was a
for the
good
whole day.
day.
That was a nutritious day, right? And that hunger, legitimate hunger, is what created the hunger in me to want to do more and be more. And to Neil's point, knowing that things are always going to work out and you never quite understand why things are happening. But as long as you have the belief that everything does happen for a reason, good, bad, or indifferent, you may not know what the reason is right now, but it does happen for a reason. It is happening for you. And when you shift that mindset, everything else changes. And one last thing that I'll leave on, specifically regarding this business, I mean, I was down $80,000 more than once in the early years of my career. And I always just kept going, knowing that again, you're one deal away. You're one deal away from completely changing your situation. And the most important thing to get off that roller coaster or that yo-yo is to create systems in place to be consistent. Setting yourself up for success is something that not enough people talk about. Everyone just thinks that you just show up and things are going to work out. No, you have to put yourself in the position to be able to be successful. And even if you have the best network and you have the best tools and you have the most knowledge, if you're not setting yourself up with the proper systems and not being consistent with your activities and your behaviors, it's not going to work out. It might work out temporarily, but you're going to be on that roller coaster ride. And if you want to be on that steady climb, you got to be able to put the work in.
So last question from us, and then we'll wrap it up. Talk to the person who's on the verge of giving up. Not necessarily in this business, in general. Christian, nothing's working out for me. I'm getting slammed everywhere, personally, health-wise, financially, professionally. I can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. You found a way that's good for you, but I'm in a hole, man. What would you say to that person? Because that person is listening and watching this right now.
It's a tough situation. I've been in it many times before, as I mentioned before. A lot of it is what I said, just shifting your mindset, shifting your story that you're telling yourself, shifting from a victim mentality to a winning mentality, regardless if you're winning, is something that's extremely important. The cavalry's not coming. So when you realize that, you have to get out and you have to do something that's going to change your life. And I think the best thing you could possibly do is lean into faith. Faith, whether it's religious or just belief in yourself, faith in yourself, that you are powerful, you are important, you can make it through this. You may not be able to see in front of you right now, but it doesn't mean that you can't move. Just
Right.
keep moving because stagnation is what will kill everybody.
Hmm.
You keep moving, and I mean physically moving your body, even if it's going for a walk, right?
Right.
Moving your body, when you change your body, your physiology changes, everything changes. The way you look at the world, the way you look at your situation changes. If you sit and you dwell on things, and I told people this during the pandemic, if you go under the table and you say, "Woe is me," everything is happening, or in today bring to today's, the tariffs are messing things up, geopolitical issues, the world is collapsing. If you live in that fear, you will be a victim always. But if you go out and you try to make the most out of a situation, and everything is an opportunity. Just
Right.
look at this as a learning opportunity and just try to push forward the best you can. Move forward, have faith in yourself, know that everything is going to work out. It may not seem fair right now, it may not seem clear, but just keep pushing.
Okay.
You deserve it for yourself.
Impressive guy, Michael, but you're impressive. So I'm not surprised of all the impressive people that you've introduced to me to here on the Rainstorm Media Network, especially the Rainstorm Radio Show and Million Dollar Minutes. And if I have presented some of my athlete friends too, to Michael so far, that he's been very, very impressed. People can connect very easily with Christian by going to rainstormmediagroup.com. There's going to be a page for him. There you can fill out the contact information and schedule a call with him. I appreciate it, Michael. Appreciate it, Christian. Thanks again,
Great
guys.
job. Great
Thank
All
job,
you,
right.
gentlemen.
Christian. Great job,
That
Neil.
was the special simulcast, the Neil Haley Show and Million Dollar Minutes with Michael August, guys. Take care.
Thank you, buddy.
Thank you.